The small community center buzzed with activity as Lily Park shifted her weight from one foot to the other. At 34, she felt oddly out of place among the mix of retirees and teenagers clutching their sheet music. The beginner's piano class wasn't where someone her age typically found themselves on a Wednesday evening, but Lily had her reasons. "First time?" asked an older gentleman with kind eyes, noticing her nervousness. Lily nodded, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Is it that obvious?" "We all start somewhere," he said with a warm smile. "I'm Harold. Been trying to learn for 6 months now. My grandkids think it's hilarious." As they chatted, Lily's eyes kept drifting to the upright piano in the corner of the room. Her fingers tingled slightly, a phantom sensation she knew all too well. 20 years earlier, those same hands had glided across the keys of concert grands in prestigious venues across Asia and Europe. Back then, she'd been known as Lin May Park, the Korean-American piano prodigy who could make Rachmaninoff sound effortless at 14. But no one here knew that. No one needed to know. Mr. Daniels, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and round glasses, called the class to order. "Welcome, everyone. I see some new faces today." His gaze landed on Lily. "Would you mind introducing yourself?" "I'm Lily," she said quietly. "I work as a website designer. I've always wanted to learn piano, just never found the time until now." The lie came easily after years of practice. In truth, Lily hadn't touched a piano in almost 18 years. Not since the day she walked off stage during the international Chopin competition. Overwhelmed by panic and the crushing weight of expectations, the prodigy who disappeared, the musical genius who couldn't handle the pressure. Now she lived quietly, designing websites from her apartment, with only her cat Beethoven aware of her past life. Even her neighbors had no idea that the quiet woman in 3B had once been profiled in music magazines as the next great piano virtuoso. "Wonderful to have you, Lily," Mr. Daniels said. "Let's start with the basics. Who here has never played before?" Lily raised her hand along with 3 others. Mr. Daniels gestured for them to come forward first. "Let's see what natural ability you might have," he said cheerfully. "Just place your hands like this and try to play these notes." Lily approached the piano, her heart racing. The moment her fingertips touched the cool keys, a jolt of familiarity shot through her body. She quickly adjusted her posture, making it slightly awkward, hunching her shoulders in a way that would have horrified her former teachers. "Like this?" she asked, deliberately placing her fingers incorrectly. "Not quite," Mr. Daniels said patiently, adjusting her hand position. "Try to curve your fingers a bit more, like you're holding an orange." Lily nodded and played the simple 5-note sequence he requested, carefully inserting a slight hesitation between the 3rd and 4th notes and pressing too hard on the last one. "Good first attempt," Mr. Daniels encouraged. "You have long fingers that will help you span the keys once you get more advanced." If only he knew those fingers, had once danced through lists like Campanella without breaking a sweat. The class continued with basic exercises. Lily watched the other beginners struggle with timing and finger placement, issues she'd mastered before she could properly tie her shoes. She mirrored their difficulties, creating her own artificial stumbling blocks, pressing too many keys at once, frowning in pretend concentration, celebrating small victories. "You're picking this up rather quickly," Mr. Daniels commented after she successfully played a simple C major scale with both hands. "I listen to a lot of classical music," Lily offered as explanation. "Maybe it helps." After class, as students gathered their belongings, Harold approached her again. "You know, there's something about the way you sit at the piano," he said thoughtfully. "Reminds me of my sister. She played for years." Lily felt a flicker of panic. "Really? I was probably just copying Mr. Daniels." "Probably," Harold agreed, but his eyes held a hint of curiosity. On her walk home, Lily questioned her decision to enroll in the class. The ruse would require constant vigilance. One slip, one moment of muscle memory taking over, and her cover would be blown. But after nearly 2 decades away from the instrument that had once been her entire life, she needed this. Needed to reconnect with music on her own terms, without the crushing pressure of being Lin May Park, the child prodigy who'd been pushed to perfection by ambitious parents and demanding teachers. Her tiny apartment welcomed her with silence. Beethoven the cat stretched lazily on the couch, unimpressed by her return. Lily dropped her bag and went straight to her closet, pushing aside winter coats to reveal a small, locked chest she rarely opened. Inside lay the remnants of her former life: competition medals, newspaper clippings, concert programs. Her fingers trembled as she lifted a faded photograph, a serious-faced teenage girl in a formal black dress, standing beside a gleaming concert grand. The audience had given her a standing ovation that night after her performance of Beethoven's Emperor Concerto. She'd been 15. "Hello, Lin May," she whispered to her younger self. The next morning, Lily woke early to practice being bad at piano. She used an app on her tablet that displayed a simple keyboard, carefully working out how a true beginner would approach the exercises Mr. Daniels had assigned. Too much force on the keys, inconsistent timing, confused finger placement. It was harder than she expected to play poorly in a convincing way. At her next lesson, Lily continued her charade. She made the same mistakes as the other beginners, celebrated small improvements, and asked questions she'd known the answers to since childhood. "You're developing calluses," Mr. Daniels noted when he corrected her hand position. "Have you been practicing a lot?" "Every evening," Lily admitted. This wasn't a lie. She'd been playing for hours each night, but not the simple exercises assigned to the class. Alone in her apartment with headphones plugged into a digital keyboard, she'd reconnected with Chopin nocturnes and Bach preludes, her fingers remembering what her heart had tried to forget. As weeks passed, Lily found herself enjoying the community center classes in an unexpected way. There was something refreshing about being just another struggling student, about playing without the suffocating expectation of perfection. Harold became a friend, sharing stories about his grandchildren while they waited for class to begin. A teenage girl named Rose asked Lily for help with a particularly tricky rhythm pattern, never suspecting she was asking advice from someone who had once performed with major symphonies. 2 months into the course, Mr. Daniels announced he was organizing a small recital. "Nothing fancy," he assured them, seeing the panic on several faces. "Just a chance to show your progress to friends and family. Each student will play a simple piece appropriate to their level." The class buzzed with nervous energy. Lily felt her stomach tighten. A performance, even a simple one, meant being watched, judged. "I don't think I'm ready," she told Mr. Daniels after class. "Everyone feels that way," he said kindly. "But trust me, playing for an audience, even a small supportive one, is an important part of learning. I'll assign you something very manageable." Lily nodded reluctantly. She could play poorly on purpose for the recital. It would actually be easier than trying to match the exact level of progress expected of her. But the thought of sitting at a piano with eyes on her brought back memories of her final competition, of the moment everything fell apart. That night she dreamed of the Warsaw Concert Hall, of the hushed anticipation as she took her seat at the piano. In the dream, as in reality, she began Chopin's Ballade No. 1. But as the piece progressed, growing more complex and emotional, her fingers froze. The silence stretched. Hundreds of eyes watched. The judges scribbled notes. And Lin May Park, the brilliant prodigy, walked off stage mid-performance, never to return. Lily woke with her heart pounding. Beethoven the cat stared at her with judgmental yellow eyes from the foot of the bed. "I know what you're thinking," she told him, "but I'm not that person anymore." At the next class, Mr. Daniels was absent. A note on the door directed students to room 3, where a substitute teacher would be filling in. "I hope it's not someone strict," Harold muttered as they walked down the hallway. "I like Mr. Daniels' patience." The woman waiting in room 3 immediately dispelled this hope. Tall and thin, with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun, she surveyed the class with critical eyes. "Good evening. I am Ms. Chen. Mr. Daniels has the flu and will be absent for at least 2 weeks. I'll be taking over his beginners' classes." Her gaze swept the room, landing on each student briefly before moving on. When she reached Lily, her eyes narrowed slightly, and Lily felt an uncomfortable twinge of recognition. Had they met before? In her former life, Lily had encountered countless piano teachers and professors. "Let's see what you've all been learning," Ms. Chen said crisply. "We'll go around the room. Each of you will play your current practice piece." As other students played, Ms. Chen offered brisk corrections and minimal praise. When Lily's turn came, she deliberately fumbled through a simple Mozart melody, adding hesitations and minor errors. Ms. Chen watched with an unreadable expression. When Lily finished, the teacher was silent for a long moment. "Your posture," she finally said, "suggests you've played before. Lily felt a cold trickle of fear down her spine. No, just trying to follow Mr. Daniel's instructions. Ms. Chen seemed unconvinced but moved on to the next student. Throughout the remainder of the class, Lily felt the substitute's eyes returning to her repeatedly, studying her with unsettling intensity. As they packed up to leave, Ms. Chen called Lily over. Your hands, she said without preamble. They moved to the correct positions almost instinctively, even when you make mistakes. Lily forced a laugh. Beginner's luck, I guess. Perhaps, Ms. Chen replied. Or perhaps you're not challenging yourself enough. She reached into her folder and pulled out a sheet of music, handing it to Lily. I'd like you to work on this for next week. Lily glanced down at the page and nearly gasped. It was Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu, a piece requiring years of training to master. I can't possibly play this, she stammered, genuine shock replacing her practiced awkwardness. Ms. Chen's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Try anyway. I'm curious to see how you approach it. As Lily left the community center, the sheet music felt like it was burning a hole in her bag. Ms. Chen suspected something, but how much? And what game was she playing by assigning an impossible piece to a supposed beginner? For the first time since returning to the piano, Lily felt truly afraid. Her carefully constructed new life and her healing relationship with music both hung in precarious balance. Lily stared at the Chopin sheet music spread across her kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold beside it. Beethoven the cat batted playfully at the corner of the pages, unaware of the storm brewing inside his owner. This is impossible, she muttered, running her fingers through her hair. No beginner could ever play this. The Fantaisie Impromptu was notoriously difficult. Rapid notes, complex rhythms, and emotional depth that challenged even experienced pianists. Lily had performed it countless times in her previous life as Lin May Park, but that was nearly 2 decades ago. Her phone buzzed with a text from Harold. How's the crazy homework from Ms. Dragon Lady? Mine's impossible. Lily smiled despite her anxiety. At least she wasn't the only one who'd received a challenging assignment. She texted back and was staring at it in disbelief. Want to practice together tomorrow? Harold's suggestion to meet at the community center's practice rooms the following afternoon gave Lily a temporary sense of relief. At least she wouldn't have to face this challenge alone. That night, Lily pulled her digital keyboard from under her bed where it had lived since she moved into the apartment 5 years ago. She connected headphones and for the first time in years attempted the piece that Ms. Chen had assigned. Her fingers felt stiff and uncertain on the opening notes. The muscle memory was there, buried deep, but time had eroded her technique. She stumbled through the first page, making mistakes she would never have made as a teenager. It was frustrating and oddly liberating at the same time. Just play badly, she reminded herself. That's what a beginner would do. But as midnight approached, Lily found herself playing sections over and over, correcting errors, awakening dormant skills. The joy of the music itself, something she had lost in the pressure of competition, began to seep back into her bones. By the time she finally fell into bed, exhausted, she had made a decision. She would learn to play the piece badly, convincingly badly as a beginner might. The next day, Harold's eyes widened when Lily showed him her assignment. You got that too? Mine's not quite as hard, but still way beyond me. He showed her his sheet music, a simpler Chopin prelude, but still far too advanced for someone with 6 months of lessons. She's testing us, Lily said, suddenly understanding. Or trying to scare us off. Harold nodded grimly. Rose quit this morning. Texted me that she's not coming back. They practiced side by side. Harold genuinely struggling while Lily carefully constructed a beginner's approach to an advanced piece. Simplifying chords, slowing tempos, focusing on short sections rather than the whole. You're actually making progress, Harold said with admiration after an hour. All I've got is a headache. Lily shrugged. I'm just trying different tricks. Look, what if you just focus on the right-hand melody for now and add the left hand later? As she demonstrated, Lily momentarily forgot herself playing a passage with too much fluency. Harold tilted his head, studying her. You sure you've never played before? You have good instincts. Lily quickly fumbled the next notes. Just got lucky with that part. Watch. This next section is a disaster. By the time their practice session ended, Lily had carefully mapped out how a talented beginner might approach the piece, which sections to simplify, Where to slow down, which notes to emphasize. It would be a delicate balance to show improvement without revealing her true abilities. The following Wednesday, Ms. Chen watched with piercing eyes as each student demonstrated their progress on the challenging assignments. Most had barely made headway, playing fragmented sections with obvious frustration. Harold managed to play the first 8 measures of his prelude at half speed, earning a curt nod from the substitute teacher. When Lily's turn came, her heart pounded as she took her seat at the piano. She began with deliberate hesitation, playing the famous opening at a fraction of its intended tempo, simplifying the left-hand patterns. She added a few well-placed mistakes and furrowed her brow in fake concentration. Ms. Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes never left Lily's hands. "Continue," she instructed when Lily paused after the first page. Lily moved to the lyrical middle section, allowing herself to play this slower part with slightly more expression, but still maintaining the facade of a beginner tackling music beyond her level. She ended after this section, not attempting the return to the rapid notes of the final page. The room was silent for a moment. Then Ms. Chen spoke. "Your hand position changes when you concentrate. It becomes more professional." Lily felt her chest tighten. "I've been watching videos online," she offered, "to help with the assignment." "I see." Ms. Chen turned to address the whole class. "Next week we will have a special practice session. Each of you will perform your piece for the others and I will provide detailed feedback." Murmurs of anxiety rippled through the room. "Public performance already?" Most weren't ready to play even simple pieces confidently. After class, Lily hurried to gather her things, hoping to avoid further conversation with Ms. Chen. She was nearly at the door when the teacher called her name. "Ms. Park," she said quietly. "A moment, please." Lily turned slowly. "Yes?" "Your approach to the Fantasie Impromptu is interesting. You're playing it as if breaking it down for a student." Lily clutched her bag tighter. "I just tried to make it manageable." "Indeed." Ms. Chen studied her face. "The name Lin May Park means nothing to you, I suppose." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Lily's feet. Her own name, her old name, spoken aloud after so many years of careful anonymity. How could Ms. Chen possibly know? "Should it?" she managed to ask, her voice barely steady. Ms. Chen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps not. See you next week, Ms. Park." Lily practically ran from the building, her mind racing. Ms. Chen knew who she was, or at least suspected, but how? Had they met during Lily's competition days? Was Ms. Chen connected to the classical music world? At home, Lily frantically searched online for information about the substitute teacher. She found little, just a brief faculty listing at a local college where a Diana Chen taught music appreciation. No photos, no detailed biography. The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety. Lily practiced her deliberate mistakes with the focus she had once applied to mastering difficult passages. She considered dropping the class but couldn't bring herself to give up now. Music had re-entered her life, and despite the complications, she wasn't ready to let it go again. On Saturday afternoon, Harold invited her for coffee after their practice session. "You seem on edge," he said as they settled at a corner table in the cafe across from the community center. "Everything okay?" Lily stirred her latte absently. "Just nervous about this performance thing next week." Harold nodded sympathetically. "Tell me about it." "I'm thinking of calling in sick." "I might join you," Lily said with a weak smile. "You know, I've been meaning to ask you something," Harold said, his tone casual, but his eyes curious. "Sometimes when you play, especially when you think no one's paying attention, you look different, like you're somewhere else." Lily's guard went up immediately. "I don't know what you mean." "It's not a bad thing," Harold continued. "It's actually beautiful to watch, like you're connecting with the music on some deeper level." "I just enjoy it," Lily said carefully. "Playing helps me relax." Harold seemed about to say more when his phone buzzed. He checked the screen and frowned. "Well, that's unexpected. Mr. Daniels just emailed everyone. He's still sick and Ms. Chen will be continuing for another 3 weeks. Lily's heart sank. 3 more weeks of trying to hide her abilities under the watchful eye of someone who might already know her secret. "Great," she muttered. "Oh, and there's more," Harold added, still reading. "Apparently there's going to be some special guest at our performance next week. A professor from the music college or something." This was getting worse by the minute. "Did he say who?" "Nope, just that they're interested in community music education." That night, Lily barely slept. The walls she had carefully built around her past life felt like they were crumbling. Part of her wanted to run, to drop the class, maybe even move to a new city and start over again. But another part, a part she had suppressed for years, whispered that maybe it was time to stop hiding. She sat at her keyboard in the darkness, headphones on, and began to play the Fantaisie impromptu, not the simplified version she had prepared for class, but the real piece as it was meant to be played. Her fingers remembered more than she expected, dancing across the keys with growing confidence. The music flowed through her, familiar and exhilarating. When she finished, tears were streaming down her face. She had forgotten how it felt to truly play, to surrender to the music without fear or pretense. Whatever happened next week, she had rediscovered something precious. Monday evening found Lily back at the practice rooms, working on her beginner version of the Chopin piece. She had deliberately chosen a time when she knew Harold and the others wouldn't be there. She needed to perfect her imperfections alone. She was so focused on playing a particularly difficult passage with manufactured clumsiness that she didn't hear the door open. It wasn't until she reached the end of the page that she sensed another presence in the room. Ms. Chen stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Don't let me interrupt you," she said. "Please, continue." Lily froze, uncertain which version of herself to present. The beginner she was pretending to be, or the pianist she once was? "I was just finishing," she said, moving to gather her music. "No," Ms. Chen said, stepping into the room and closing the door behind her. "I think you were just beginning." She approached the piano and placed a yellowed concert program on the music stand. Lily's breath caught as she recognized it. A recital from 18 years ago at Carnegie Hall, featuring several young talents, including 14-year-old Lin May Park, performing Liszt's La Campanella. "I was in the audience that night," Ms. Chen said quietly. "You played beautifully. I've followed your career and your disappearance. I recognized you the moment you walked into class. Though you've changed, of course." Lily stared at the program, at her younger self listed among prodigies who had gone on to international careers while she had vanished into anonymity. "Why are you here, Lin May?" Ms. Chen asked. "Taking beginner lessons when you once played on the world's greatest stages?" The moment of truth had arrived. Lily took a deep breath and looked up at the woman who had uncovered her secret. "Because I want to remember why I loved it in the first place," she said simply. "Before the pressure, before the expectations, before everything fell apart." Silence hung in the practice room as Lily's words faded away. Ms. Chen regarded her with eyes that had softened from their usual sharpness. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the chair beside the piano. Lily nodded, her hand still resting lightly on the keys. The old concert program lay between them like a bridge connecting two worlds, her past and present. "I was at your final competition too," Ms. Chen said quietly. "In Warsaw," Lily flinched. The memory of that day still stung. The hushed audience, the oppressive silence as she froze mid-performance, then walked off stage without explanation. "The beginning of the end. Then you saw my greatest failure," Lily said. Ms. Chen shook her head. "I saw a young woman make a brave choice. Many keep playing even when the joy is gone. You chose differently." Lily looked up, surprised by this interpretation. For years she had carried the weight of shame, of disappointing her parents, her teachers, her supporters. No one had ever suggested her exit had been an act of courage rather than weakness. "My parents didn't see it that way," she said, "nor did the press." "Parents rarely understand," Ms. Chen replied with a hint of weariness in her voice. "Especially when they've invested everything in a child's talent." The two women sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the evening had turned the windows into mirrors, reflecting their profiles against the darkening sky. "What happens now?" Lily finally asked. "Will you tell the others?" Ms. Chen considered this. "That depends on you. Why did you come back to the piano after all these years? And why like this, pretending to be a beginner?" Lily's fingers traced a silent melody on her lap as she searched for the right words. "After Warsaw, I couldn't touch a piano without feeling sick. The sound of classical music would send me into a panic. I walked away from everything, changed my name from Lin May to Lily, cut ties with the music world, built a new life." She gestured to the piano. "But recently I started feeling drawn to it again, like something was missing, and the pretending." Lily gave a small, embarrassed smile. "I wanted to learn how to love music again without any pressure. As a beginner, no one expects perfection. There's joy in small victories, permission to make mistakes. She looked directly at Ms. Chen. When you play at the level I did, there's no room for error. Every note has to be perfect. I forgot what it felt like to simply enjoy playing. Ms. Chen nodded slowly. And has it worked? This experiment of yours? Until you assigned me Chopin, Lily said with a short laugh. But yes, for the first time in years, I've felt the pull of the music without the accompanying dread. Then perhaps we can make an arrangement, Ms. Chen said. Your secret remains safe with me on one condition. Lily tensed. What condition? Play for me now. The full fantasy impromptu, not as Lily the beginner, but as Lin May the pianist. I want to hear what's still inside you. Heart racing, Lily turned to face the keys properly. She hadn't played the piece at full capacity in front of anyone since her competition days. Her hands hovered uncertainly. Don't think, Ms. Chen said gently. Just play. Lily took a deep breath and began. The opening cascades flowed from her fingers, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. The familiar patterns awakened muscle memories long dormant. As she reached the melodic middle section, she closed her eyes, letting the music speak through her without the technical analysis that had once dominated her approach. It wasn't perfect. There were missed notes, phrases that lacked the polish of her competition days, but there was something new in her playing, a vulnerability, an emotional honesty that had been missing when technique was all that mattered. As the final notes faded, Lily realized her cheeks were wet with tears. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. I'm out of practice, she apologized. You're more musical now than you were at 14, Ms. Chen said. Less technical precision perhaps, but more heart. The door suddenly opened, making both women jump. Harold stood in the doorway, his expression a mixture of confusion and awe. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but I forgot my... His voice trailed off as he looked at Lily. That was you playing? Just now? Lily froze, looking helplessly at Ms. Chen, who raised an eyebrow as if to say, Your move. The moment stretched between them. Lily realized she had reached a crossroads. Continue the charade or finally step into the truth. Yes, she admitted. That was me. Harold took a step into the room. But that piece is incredibly difficult. I've heard recordings. You played it like someone who's been playing since she was 4. Lily finished for him. I should have been honest with you, Harold. I'm not a beginner. Harold stared at her, processing this revelation. So all this time you've been pretending? But why? Ms. Chen stood up. I'll leave you two to talk. Lily, think about what we discussed. And remember, Wednesday's class, the performance, will proceed as planned. She gathered her things and left, nodding briefly to Harold as she passed. Alone with her friend, Lily felt a strange relief mixed with anxiety. It was time for the truth. Let's grab coffee, she suggested. It's a long story. 30 minutes later, they sat in the same cafe where they'd talked just days before, but everything had changed. Lily told Harold about her life as Lin May Park, the child prodigy pushed to excellence by ambitious parents and demanding teachers. She described the grueling practice schedules, international competitions, and mounting pressure that had eventually led to her breakdown on stage. After Warsaw, I couldn't face any of it anymore, she explained. The expectations, the criticism, the constant judgment. I disappeared, changed my name, and built a new life far away from music. Harold listened without interruption, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. So why come back now? Why take beginner lessons when you can play like you just did? Lily wrapped her hands around her mug, drawing comfort from its warmth. Because I wanted to remember what it felt like to play without fear. As a beginner, no one expected perfection. I could make mistakes and it was okay. I could enjoy small improvements without the weight of being a former prodigy. Harold considered this. And all those times you helped me with fingering and rhythm. I'm sorry for the deception, Lily said sincerely. I never meant to mislead you specifically. You've been a good friend. It's a lot to take in, Harold admitted, but I think I understand. It's like a famous chef taking a basic cooking class under a fake name just to remember the joy of cooking without critics breathing down their neck. Lily smiled, grateful for his attempt to relate. That's actually a perfect analogy. So what happens now? Are you going to tell the others? This was the question Lily had been asking herself since Ms. Chen had discovered her secret. The protective walls she had built around her past were crumbling. Part of her wanted to run and hide again, but another part, a stronger part, was tired of pretending. "I don't know," she admitted. "Ms. Chen wants us to go ahead with the performance on Wednesday. She hasn't said she'll expose me, but there's going to be some special guest there," Harold remembered. "Someone from the music college." Lily nodded, anxiety creeping back. "Exactly. And in the classical music world, it's a small circle. If it's someone who knew me before, would it be so terrible?" Harold asked. "If people knew who you really are?" The question hung between them. Lily had spent so long running from her identity as Lin May Park that she had never considered the possibility of embracing it again, on her own terms this time. "I've been hiding for so long," she said softly. "I'm not sure I know how to be her anymore, or if I want to be." Harold reached across the table and patted her hand awkwardly. "For what it's worth, I like Lily, even if she's been holding out on me in the piano department." Lily laughed, tension breaking. "Thanks, Harold." On her way home, Lily took a detour past a small music shop she'd always avoided. The display window featured several keyboards and a collection of sheet music. Without giving herself time to reconsider, she pushed open the door and went inside. The shop was quiet, with just a few customers browsing. In the back corner stood a glossy black upright piano. Lily approached it cautiously, as if it might disappear if she moved too quickly. A middle-aged woman looked up from behind the counter. "Feel free to try it," she called. "It was just tuned yesterday." Lily hesitated, then sat down on the bench. The keys felt different from her digital keyboard, more substantial, more real. She began to play a simple Bach prelude, one of the first pieces she had mastered as a child. The pure acoustic sound filled the shop. A couple browsing electric guitars paused to listen. Lily closed her eyes, letting her fingers find their way through the familiar patterns. When she finished, there was a brief silence, then a smattering of applause from the handful of people in the store. "That was lovely," the woman behind the counter said. "You play beautifully." "Thank you," Lily replied, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel the need to deflect the compliment or hide her abilities. On Wednesday evening, Lily arrived early for the class performance. The community center's main room had been rearranged with chairs facing the piano, creating a makeshift recital space. Her stomach knotted as she saw an elegant older man in conversation with Ms. Chen, likely the special guest from the music college. Harold hurried over to her. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" Lily adjusted the sheet music in her hands. The Fantasie Impromptu, not the simplified version she had prepared as part of her beginner facade, but the full piece. "Yes," she said quietly. "I'm going to play. The real you." She took a deep breath. "The real me, whoever that is now." As other students and a small audience of friends and family members arrived, Lily's anxiety grew. Ms. Chen gathered the performers in a corner for last-minute instructions. "You'll each play in the order listed on the program," she explained. "Lily, you'll be last." Lily nodded, her mouth dry. The special guest, introduced as Professor Thomas from the City Conservatory, smiled politely at the group. His eyes passed over Lily without a flicker of recognition, and she felt a momentary relief. Perhaps he wouldn't know her after all. The performances began. Harold played his simplified Chopin prelude with careful concentration, earning warm applause. Other students presented their pieces with varying degrees of success, but the supportive audience encouraged everyone equally. Finally, Ms. Chen announced, "Our last performer this evening is Lily Park, playing Chopin's Fantasie Impromptu." A murmur ran through the small crowd. It was an ambitious piece for a community center class. Professor Thomas leaned forward with interest. Lily walked to the piano on legs that felt disconnected from her body. As she sat down, she caught Ms. Chen's eye. The teacher gave her a nearly imperceptible nod of encouragement. Taking a deep breath, Lily placed her hands on the keys. For a suspended moment, she considered playing the simplified version after all, clinging to her disguise for a little longer. Instead, she began to play the piece as it was written, her fingers finding their way through the complex patterns with growing confidence. She heard a gasp from someone in the audience, perhaps recognizing that this was no beginner's performance. As she played, something shifted inside her. The music flowed not just from her hands, but from someplace deeper, a place that had been locked away for 18 years. She wasn't Lin May the prodigy or Lily the pretend beginner. She was simply herself, playing with all the techniques she had mastered and all the emotions she had discovered since walking away from the concert stage. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then the room erupted in applause. Lily looked up to see Harold on his feet, clapping enthusiastically. Ms. Chen was smiling, a genuine, warm smile that transformed her severe features, and Professor Thomas was staring at her, his expression a mixture of shock and wonder. As their eyes met across the room, Lily knew with certainty that her secret was out. Her past and present had finally, inevitably collided. As the applause faded, Lily felt as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff. The familiar anxiety began to creep back, the weight of others' expectations, the pressure of being seen for who she really was. She rose from the piano bench on unsteady legs and gave a small awkward bow. People were whispering, looking at her with new eyes. She caught fragments of conversation, incredible talent, professional level. Who is she really? Harold stood nearby, giving her an encouraging thumbs up. Ms. Chen thanked everyone for coming and announced refreshments at the back of the room. As the audience dispersed, Professor Thomas made his way directly to Lily. "That was remarkable," he said, extending his hand. "Thomas Mitchell from the City Conservatory." Lily shook his hand, her mouth dry. "Lily Park, thank you." His eyes studied her face. "You seem familiar. Have we met before?" Before Lily could respond, Ms. Chen appeared at her side. "Professor Mitchell, I see you've met our most advanced student." "Advanced indeed," he agreed. "That performance was conservatory level. Ms. Park, have you had professional training?" The moment of truth had arrived. Lily glanced at Ms. Chen, who gave her a slight nod. "Yes," Lily admitted. "Many years ago." Recognition suddenly dawned in the professor's eyes. "Wait, Park, not Lin May Park? The prodigy from the early 2000s? Hearing her former name spoken aloud in this crowded room sent a shock through Lily's system. Several nearby people turned to look. Yes, she said quietly. "That was me." Professor Mitchell's face lit up. "Extraordinary. I saw you perform with the Philadelphia Orchestra when you were just 13. Your Tchaikovsky was unforgettable, and then you disappeared after Warsaw. The music world lost track of you completely." More people were gathering around now, sensing something significant was happening. Lily felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the beginning of the panic that had driven her from the stage all those years ago. Noticing her distress, Ms. Chen smoothly intervened. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere quieter. My office is just down the hall." Grateful for the escape, Lily followed Ms. Chen and Professor Mitchell away from the curious crowd. Harold caught her eye as she left, and she mouthed, "I'll call you," before slipping out of the room. Ms. Chen's office was small but tidy, with framed sheet music on the walls and a mini keyboard on a side table. Once the door closed behind them, Lily took a deep breath, feeling the panic recede slightly. "I apologize for putting you on the spot," Professor Mitchell said, seeming genuinely concerned. "Your identity was clearly not common knowledge." "It's been almost 20 years since I performed publicly," Lily explained. "I've been living under the radar intentionally. May I ask why?" The professor's question was gentle, curious rather than demanding. Lily sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the evening of finally playing as herself again had drained her. After Warsaw, I couldn't handle it anymore. The pressure, the expectations, the endless demands for perfection. I had been performing since I was 4, never really by choice. Music became more about pleasing others than expressing anything meaningful. Professor Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. "The burnout of prodigies is tragically common. The music world can be ruthless, especially to young talents." "I didn't just burn out," Lily continued, finding it strangely freeing to finally speak these truths aloud. "I broke down, walked off stage mid-performance and never returned. Changed my name, cut ties with everyone from that life, and started over. Until you enrolled in beginner piano lessons," Ms. Chen added with a small smile. "Which makes no sense," Lily acknowledged. "On the contrary," Professor Mitchell said, "it makes perfect sense. You were reclaiming the instrument on your own terms without the weight of being Lin May Park?" Lily looked up, surprised by his understanding. "That's exactly it. As a beginner, I could make mistakes. I could enjoy small victories. I could remember why I loved the piano in the first place. And now, Ms. Chen asked. After tonight's performance? It was the question Lily had been avoiding. Now that her secret was out, at least to some degree. What came next? I don't know, she admitted. I can't go back to being anonymous Lily the web designer taking beginner piano lessons. But I also won't return to the concert circuit or competition world. There are other paths, Professor Mitchell suggested carefully. Other ways to be in relationship with music. The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Harold poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but people are asking questions out there. Someone Googled Lin May Park on their phone and found old videos. The secret's spreading. Lily closed her eyes briefly. There was no going back now. Thank you, Harold, she said. I'll be out in a minute. After Harold left, Lily stood up, smoothing down her shirt. I should face them. Get it over with. You don't owe anyone explanations, Miss Chen said firmly. Maybe not, but I owe myself the chance to stop hiding. When Lily returned to the main room, a small crowd immediately gathered around her. Their questions came rapidly. Are you really that child prodigy? Why are you taking beginner classes? Will you perform professionally again? What happened in Warsaw? Harold appeared at her side, his solid presence comforting. Hey, give her some space, folks. One at a time. Lily appreciated his support but raised a hand. It's okay. Yes, I was known as Lin May Park and performed internationally as a child and teenager. No, I won't be returning to professional performance. As for why I'm here, she glanced around at the familiar faces of her classmates. I wanted to learn to love music again without pressure or expectations. By pretending to be a beginner, one of the older students looked hurt, perhaps feeling deceived. I'm sorry for the deception, Lily said sincerely. It wasn't about fooling anyone. It was about finding a safe space to reconnect with the piano. There was a moment of silence as people processed this. Then one of the teenage students spoke up. That performance was amazing. Would you consider teaching? I'd love to learn from someone like you. The question caught Lily off guard. Teaching had never been part of her musical journey. She had always been the student, the performer, the one being molded by others. I've never taught before. You helped me with that tricky rhythm pattern last month, the girl reminded her. You explained it better than anyone ever has. And you've been giving me tips all along, Harold added. I just thought you were a natural teacher. More voices joined in, recalling moments when Lily had offered guidance or encouragement. She had done it instinctively, never thinking of it as teaching. As the evening wound down, Professor Mitchell approached her again. I hope I'm not overstepping, he said. But we have a community outreach program at the conservatory. We offer music education to adult learners and underserved communities. We're always looking for instructors who understand the unique challenges of learning music later in life. Lily blinked in surprise. You're offering me a job? I'm suggesting a possibility, he clarified. No pressure, no expectations, just an opportunity to share your gifts on your own terms. He handed her his card and bid her good night. As people began to leave, Miss Chen touched Lily's arm. Whatever you decide, you played beautifully tonight. Not with the technical perfection of Lin May at 14, but with something more valuable. Genuine emotional connection. The words stayed with Lily as she walked home through the quiet streets. The evening had unfolded in ways she could never have predicted when she first enrolled in beginner lessons. Her carefully constructed anonymity was gone, but in its place was a strange, tentative freedom. At home, Beethoven the cat greeted her with his usual indifference before demanding his dinner. The familiar routine was comforting after the emotional turmoil of the evening. As she fed him, her phone buzzed with a text from Harold. You were amazing tonight. No hard feelings about the secret identity thing. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate your coming out of pianist retirement? Lily smiled and texted back. Thanks for being a good friend. Drinks sound perfect. She moved to her keyboard and switched it on, playing a few notes absently. The events of the evening replayed in her mind. The performance, the revelation, the surprising suggestion of teaching. For the first time in years, possibilities stretched before her that included music without the crushing pressure of her previous life. The next morning, Lily woke to find her performance had gone somewhat viral in the local community. Someone had recorded part of it on their phone, and the video was being shared with captions about the secret prodigy at the community center. Her phone was filled with messages from classmates, from Harold, and even one from her parents. whom she hadn't spoken to in years. Someone must have contacted them. The message from her mother was brief. "We saw the video. You're playing again. Please call us." Lily set the phone down without replying. That was a conversation, a reconciliation perhaps for another day. One step at a time. She had arranged to meet Ms. Chen at a cafe to discuss her future with the class. Now that everyone knew who she was, continuing as a student made little sense. As she entered the cafe, she spotted the teacher at a corner table already waiting. "Good morning," Ms. Chen greeted her. "How are you feeling after last night's excitement?" "Strangely light," Lily admitted as she sat down. "As if I've set down a heavy backpack I've been carrying for years." Ms. Chen nodded. "Secrets can become burdens over time." "I wanted to talk about the class," Lily began. "Obviously, I can't continue as a student now." "Obviously," Ms. Chen agreed. "But perhaps you might consider another role." Professor Mitchell mentioned teaching at the conservatory's outreach program. "A fine opportunity," Ms. Chen said. "But I had something else in mind as well. Our advanced adult students could benefit tremendously from your perspective, someone who understands both technical mastery and the emotional challenges of the instrument." Lily hadn't considered this possibility. "You want me to teach at the community center?" "Not teach in the traditional sense. More like mentor, guide, share your unique journey." The idea was both terrifying and strangely appealing, to help others navigate their relationship with music, drawing from her own complicated history. "I'd need to think about it," Lily said honestly. "This is all happening very fast." "Of course," Ms. Chen stirred her tea. "There's something else you should know. After you left last night, Professor Mitchell told me more about his interest in your performance. The conservatory is hosting a special concert series called Returning Artists. It features musicians who left the professional world and have found their way back to music on different terms." Lily felt a flutter of anxiety. "He wants me to perform?" "He wants to offer you the opportunity. One performance, your choice of repertoire, your story told on your terms. No pressure for technical perfection, no critics with scorecards, just music and honesty." The old fear rose up immediately. The spotlight, the expectations, the potential for failure. But alongside it was a new feeling. A quiet curiosity about what it might be like to play again. Not as Lin May, the perfect prodigy, or Lily, the pretend beginner, but as herself, with all her complicated history and rediscovered joy. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she said. "You don't need to decide now," Ms. Chen assured her. "The series isn't until spring. Think about it." As they finished their coffee, Lily found herself asking the question that had been nagging at her since their first confrontation. "Why did you push me, assigning me the Fantasie impromptu when you suspected who I was?" Ms. Chen considered this. "I recognized something in you that I've seen in other former prodigies. The love of music buried under layers of trauma and expectation. Sometimes the only way forward is to confront the past." Lily realized there was more to Ms. Chen's story than she knew. "You speak from experience?" A shadow passed over the teacher's face. "Another conversation for another day, perhaps." As they parted ways outside the cafe, Ms. Chen handed Lily a small package wrapped in tissue paper. "What's this?" Lily asked. "Something I've kept for many years. I think it belongs with you now." At home, Lily unwrapped the package to find a CD, a recording of her playing Chopin at Carnegie Hall when she was 12. On the back cover was a photo of her serious young face, eyes focused with intensity beyond her years. She put the disc into her rarely used player and let the music fill her apartment. The technical precision of her younger self was remarkable, but now she could hear what had been missing, the emotional depth that comes from living, from failing, from finding your way back on your own terms. Beethoven the cat jumped onto her lap as she listened, purring contentedly. Lily stroked his fur, thinking about the unexpected turns her life had taken and the possibilities that now lay before her. The final track ended, and in the silence that followed, Lily made a decision. She would call her parents tomorrow. She would consider Ms. Chen's mentorship proposal and Professor Mitchell's outreach program. She would even think about the Returning Artists concert series. But first, she would play, not for an audience or a teacher or a competition judge, but for herself. Because after all these years, she was finally remembering why she had fallen in love with the piano in the first place. 6 months had passed since the night Lily revealed her true identity at the community center. Spring had arrived, bringing fresh blossoms to the city parks and a sense of renewal that matched Lily's own journey. The community center's recital hall was filled to capacity. Every seat was taken, and people stood along the walls, all gathered for the special year-end performance. Lily sat in the front row beside Harold, watching as Ms. Chen addressed the audience. "Tonight is a celebration of music and the unique journeys we all take with it," Ms. Chen said. "Our students range from absolute beginners to those returning to music after long absences. Each performance represents personal growth and courage." Lily smiled as the first performers took the stage, 3 retirees who had started lessons just 8 months ago. They played a simplified version of Pachelbel's canon with careful concentration, beaming with pride when they finished to enthusiastic applause. "You're up soon," Harold whispered, giving her arm a supportive squeeze. "Nervous?" "Strangely, no," Lily replied, and it was true. The anxiety that had once consumed her before performances had mellowed into a manageable flutter of excitement. Over the past 6 months, Lily's life had transformed in ways she could never have anticipated. After her identity was revealed, she had initially feared a return of the pressure and expectations that had driven her from music. Instead, she found something unexpected: acceptance and the freedom to define her own relationship with the piano. Ms. Chen had created a special role for her at the community center, part teacher, part mentor to adult students. Twice a week, Lily worked with people who had their own complicated relationships with music. The businessman who had abandoned his cello dreams to pursue a practical career. The grandmother finally learning the instrument she had always longed to play. The former band member rediscovering music after decades away. She had also begun teaching a small group of advanced students at the conservatory's outreach program, under Professor Mitchell's guidance. Unlike the rigid instruction she had received as a child, Lily's teaching style emphasized emotional connection and personal interpretation, alongside technical skills. Most surprisingly, she had reconnected with her parents. The initial phone call had been awkward and tense, years of unspoken hurt and disappointment hanging between them. But it opened a door to healing. Her mother had apologized for the pressure she had placed on her young daughter. Her father had admitted he'd been more focused on her career than her happiness. "And now," Ms. Chen announced, bringing Lily back to the present, "we have a very special group performance. Our beginning adult students will play Debussy's Clair de Lune, arranged for multiple skill levels, accompanied by their mentor, Lily Park." This was the moment Lily had been preparing for, not a solo showcase of technical brilliance, but a collaborative performance that represented everything she had come to value about music. She took her place at the main piano while 5 of her adult students positioned themselves at keyboards around the stage. Harold gave her a thumbs up from the audience. Beside him sat Professor Mitchell and, to Lily's surprise, her parents, who had flown in for the performance. Her mother's eyes were already glistening with tears. Lily nodded to her students, all of whom looked nervous but determined. With a gentle smile, she began to play the opening notes of the Debussy piece. One by one, her students joined in, each playing a simplified part that complemented the whole. The arrangement allowed even the most basic players to contribute meaningfully, while Lily's piano provided the complex foundation. As they played, Lily felt a profound sense of rightness. This was so different from her childhood performances, where she alone had carried the burden of perfection. Here the beauty emerged from the collective effort, from the way each person brought their unique voice to the music. When they reached the piece's famous melodic section, Lily closed her eyes briefly, letting the familiar notes wash over her. She played with a depth of feeling that came not from technical precision but from life experience, from knowing what it meant to lose music and find it again. The final notes faded, and there was a moment of silence before the audience erupted in applause. Lily's students exchanged delighted looks, their faces flushed with accomplishment. One woman was openly crying with joy, and Lily squeezed her shoulder as they took their bows together. Afterward, as people mingled during the reception, Lily found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Her students' family members thanked her for bringing music into their loved ones' lives. Fellow teachers complimented the innovative arrangement. Even a local reporter hovered nearby, hoping for a few quotes about the former prodigy's new musical life. You've created something beautiful here, Professor Mitchell said, approaching with a glass of punch. Something entirely your own. Not entirely my own, Lily corrected, gesturing to her students chatting happily nearby. That's what makes it special. Her parents joined them, her father awkwardly proud, her mother trying not to hover as she had during Lily's childhood performances. It was different than what we imagined for you, her mother admitted quietly. But watching you tonight, I've never seen you play with such joy. That's because I finally found my way back to music on my terms, Lily said. There was no accusation in her voice, just a simple statement of truth. It took 20 years, but I got here. As the evening wound down, Lily spotted Ms. Chen speaking with a tall woman she didn't recognize. The teacher waved her over. Lily, I'd like you to meet Dr. Naomi Williams from the Music Therapy Association. She's been following your work with our adult students. Dr. Williams shook Lily's hand warmly. Your approach is fascinating, especially your work with adults who have performance anxiety or musical trauma. Have you considered music therapy training? Your personal experience combined with formal training could be powerful. The suggestion caught Lily by surprise. I hadn't thought of that path. Something to consider, Dr. Williams said, handing her a business card. We need people who understand both the technical aspects of music and the emotional complexities that come with it. Later, as the last guest departed and the cleaning crew began putting away chairs, Lily found herself alone at the piano. The building was quiet now, the excitement of the evening fading into peaceful stillness. She sat down and began to play, not the arranged Debussy from earlier, but a piece she had been working on privately, a composition of her own. It wasn't technically complex like the pieces she had performed as a child prodigy, but it carried emotional depth that only comes from lived experience. That's beautiful, said a voice from the doorway. Is it yours? Lily looked up to see Harold, coat over his arm, clearly on his way out. Just something I've been playing with, she admitted. Nothing serious. Sounds serious to me, he said, leaning against the piano. You should record it, Lily laughed. One step at a time. I'm still getting used to playing for others again. Well, for what it's worth, I think you found your way back. After Harold left, Lily continued playing in the empty hall, her fingers finding patterns that expressed what words could not. The journey from Lin May Park, the pressured prodigy, to Lily, the woman who had rediscovered music on her own terms, had been long and often painful. But sitting here now, she felt a sense of completeness that had eluded her for most of her life. The next morning, Lily met Ms. Chen for their traditional post-recital coffee. They had made it a habit to dissect performances together, celebrating successes and noting areas for growth. Your students did wonderfully, Ms. Chen said, stirring honey into her tea, especially Howard. He finally overcame his fear of playing the exposed melody. Lily nodded, remembering how the retired accountant's hands had trembled during rehearsals, but stayed steady during the actual performance. He's come so far. As have you, Ms. Chen observed. When I first recognized you in that beginner class, I never imagined where it would lead. That makes two of us, Lily said with a smile. I came looking for a safe way to touch a piano again. I never expected to end up teaching, mentoring, or performing. Life rarely follows the path we expect, Ms. Chen said. Sometimes that's for the better. Lily thought about the many unexpected turns her journey had taken, from child prodigy to music school dropout, from anonymous web designer to mentor and teacher, from someone who couldn't bear to hear classical music to someone who was writing her own compositions again. Professor Mitchell mentioned the Returning Artists concert series is still open, Ms. Chen said casually. The final slot hasn't been filled. The concert series had been discussed months ago, but Lily had been hesitant, unsure if she was ready for a true return to public performance. Now, after last night's success, the idea felt less daunting. I'll think about it, she promised. If I did it, I'd want to play my own composition as part of the program. Ms. Chen's eyebrows rose in pleased surprise. You're composing again? Just exploring, Lily said. But yes, there are things I want to express through music that I can't find in existing pieces. Later that day, Lily visited the small music shop where, months earlier, she had first played in public again. The owner recognized her immediately. The secret prodigy. She greeted Lily warmly. What brings you in today? I'm looking for some composition notebooks, Lily explained. And I was wondering if your offer still stands. The